voices in the blackest night, spitting tales of emerald light. Myron and Phil with the banter tight, lantern stories taking flight. Heroes clad in emerald light, cosmic battles in the dark of night. Guardians calling from the galactic height, power rings are shining bright. Tune in for the mighty lore, legends that you can't ignore. From Mogo to Sinestro's war, the podcast of Ored gives you more.
Hey, Green Lantern fans. I'm Myron Rumsey, and I'm joined by my friend on the other end, Mr. Phil Bova. We're here to talk Green Lantern comics in episode 259 of the podcast of OA. Phil, my friend, we are nearing the end of May. Can you believe it?
No, I got like 4 days left of work.
Oh, shut up.
Then I'm off for the summer, so yeah.
Ah,
And then I get to spend all the time with Clark.
that's got to be great, though. That's got to be really good. A lot of
It's gonna be
fun.
a learning experience, that's for sure. For him.
We both work in education, but I'm a 12-monther, man. I don't get the summers off. I wish I did. Wish I
I,
did.
you know what, man, I've been doing this 15 years. I kind of don't care if I have them off anymore or not. By week 2, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of ready to go back. By week 3, I'm like, yeah, I'm bored. By
Not
week
not over
4,
here. Oh no.
by week 4, I'm like, I can only clean so much. Get me out of this house.
I'm a little over a year away though from not having to worry about it anymore.
Right.
27 years on this side.
27.
27. So this episode, we're going to be talking Green Lantern Corps. We're a little behind on Green Lantern Corps. We talked about issue 0 and the first issue. We've got issues 2, 3, and 4 to talk about to get caught up. So we're bound and determined we're going to get ourselves caught up. But before we talk about comics, we've got Green Lantern news and comics news. I don't know whether you saw, Phil. Simon Baz is now going to be part of a new Justice League book, a Black Ops version of the Justice League, if you will, called Justice League Red by Saladin Ahmed and Clayton Henry on art. A team is led by Red Tornado, and it features Baz, Power Girl, Cyborg, Deadman, and Red Canary.
That's
And
an
an
interesting team up.
interesting team up. And apparently, this team is like the Trinity and the Justice League don't know anything about this team. And I'm like, how is like, are these people going to keep it secret from Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman? Uh, and what is the Justice League need a Black Ops group for? Exactly. I don't know. Well, I guess
No,
we'll see it when it comes
I like
out,
the
but
team up. I mean, the team up sounds cool.
the characters are interesting. I've always been a Red Tornado fan, so I'm glad to see something with Red Tornado in it at all, to be honest. And Deadman's always been kind of cool too. So I'm interested to see how these characters would be. I think Cyborg is such an underrated character and deserves a lot more than what he's gotten. I know they've made him a part of the Justice League through the Snyder movies and whatnot, and they tried to do that in the comics as well. And it kind of got mixed reactions from people. I just think that Cyborg is such a great character. I think he is one of my favorites, even though I've not found a lot of runs of his that compelling. But it's the idea, I think, as a person with who was born with a birth defect and a disability, as it were, I kind of identify with Cyborg and where he is in that. But for me, being an IT guy, it's always the battle between humanity and technology, and Cyborg really represents that. So for me, it's always been fascinating as a character to have that character with that struggle. I really
I,
liked how the character was played in what was the TV show? Oh, geez, I'm losing it. It was on HBO Max.
oh, Titans.
No, it wasn't. Was he? He might have been in Titans as well, but he was in a different show.
Because I thought Fisher did a good job. I liked him in the
I thought
Justice.
he was good. I thought the Cyborg was better represented in the Snyder cut than the
Yeah,
theatrical cut.
agreed.
I thought he came across better there. That show is going to kill me now. If I don't remember it, I gotta. Doom Patrol.
Oh yeah, that's
I liked
right.
him in Doom Patrol as well.
Mm.
So interesting team up. I'm not sure from a lore perspective or from a fan perspective why Justice League needs Black Ops, but we'll see why. Maybe there's a very good reason. I'm not sure. I find it hard to believe that they're going to be able to keep it secret, but maybe that's a part of the story. I don't know. Be interesting to see.
Well, so I like this team up. That sounds
Yeah,
really cool.
I like the team up. Yeah, I've never
Is
heard of the
this
writer.
is this going to be its own book then?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a miniseries or an ongoing. I think it might just be a miniseries. I'm not 100% sure.
Hmm. All right, well, whatever.
And in an odd placement over in the Batman Superman World's Finest book, there was an annual #1 that came out recently, and a backup story was a retelling of John Stewart's origin, which I thought was what a weird place to put it. Why isn't this a backup in Green Lantern Corps, where you're going to get more exposure to the target audience? Written by Morgan Hampton, who's the co-writer of the Green Lantern Corps book we're going to talk about, and art by Clayton Henry, who we just discussed is going to be doing the artwork for Justice League Red. Completely new origin for John. It takes elements of what we've seen in the past, completely redoes it. The in this one, young John Stewart has a stutter and he needs braces to walk as a child, which I thought was a little Forrest Gump for me, but whatever. And Ellie sticks up for him a lot. Ellie dies, and they don't go into the reasons why per se, but the death of Ellie motivates John to become the air quote person he was meant to be. John's father's not very supportive. In fact, when Ellie dies, he kind of throws it in John's face, saying you were supposed to take care of her, which kind of a crappy thing to say. But John's father is portrayed as somebody who has these very old-fashioned values of manhood. John then he works hard to get rid of the need for braces and to work on his stuttering issue, and he becomes a Marine. Eventually, he leaves the Marines because he doesn't like what he sees in the Marines. Becomes an architect second, and then you flash forward to the actual origin part. The Martian man, not the Martian Manhunter, a manhunter attacks a political rally where John and his mother are, and they're kind of not speaking up, but protesting against this politician. The manhunter comes and starts attacking, goes after John for some unknown reason at the time. Hal shows up. Hal fights the manhunter. John Stewart decides to get himself involved. He says, I'm tired of running away from things. This time I run towards things. And John Stewart defeats the manhunter with a piece of metal, shoves it through his body. That kills him. Um, a little odd that a power ring couldn't take him out, but a piece of metal could. Uh, and so he then says, Hal talks to John and he says the manhunter was coming after you. Now, why the manhunter was going after John, I don't know. John says that the Guardians had showed up a few weeks ago and tried to recruit him and that he didn't want anything to do with it because of his experience in the Marines. But Hal says, well, you still have the ring in your pocket. They have a conversation, and John decides to become a Green Lantern. So, okay, but there's just some odd things. Like why was the Manhunter going after John? And why would the Guardians approach John off panel and approach him to be a backup? Is in this story Guy Gardner still not a backup? Not that either one were ever a backup until Green Lantern 87, but whatever. So some
I,
odd things there, him rescuing Hal from a manhunter, I thought was a little
where does World's Finest fit into like
well, that's exactly. I'm like, why
I
is
mean
this in here?
to each their own. I don't know. I don't understand like it's like retelling Superman's origin, right? You can't it'd be like changing certain variables of his origin over and over again. But like and then let's have Superman born with I don't know, a short leg or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they do that with these certain characters.
I don't know whether it's an attempt to try to make John more relatable by adding these childhood issues. I don't know. It's funny. I was telling my wife and my son about the story over the dinner table, and the first thing that one of them said was, "Well, that's kind of a slap in the face to anybody that's got a stutter or walks with braces because they have a problem. Because you're saying, well, you can just overcome this with your own willpower and your strength of things, and so you're minimizing people who have these issues that they have to deal with by just
Right.
saying it can be overcome so easily." And I'm like, I didn't think about it that way, but I totally get that.
That's a good way to put it. Another way you can look at it as in, they're showing that you can have these things and not feel whatever you feel about them and be
Yeah.
okay with them, I guess. I don't know.
The comment was that it was kind of minimized. It would have been better if he'd had like a childhood disease or something
Hmm.
that he overcame, or it left him with a condition or of some sort, or something. But it was never explained why he had a stutter or why he needed braces to walk. And as I said it, the first thing that my son was like, "Run, Forrest, run," because it was it kind of came off that way.
Well, and
Uh,
then he joins the Marines, right? I mean,
right, 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 right.
Forrest joined the armed forces, so I mean,
So,
yeah,
so you
I
have
mean,
some
it is
commonality
kind of
there.
Forrest Gumpish.
And I think Morgan Hampton was trying to make John more relatable. I think recently watched an interview with Morgan Hampton, or read an interview, I can't remember which, where he talked about he has hemophilia and has dealt with that his entire life. So I think he relates to those kind of things. Like he relates to Cyborg in the same way I do with my birth defect and whatnot. And
Sure.
so I think he was trying to do some of that self-insert of, sometimes writers do this, is they write characters that are closely related to themselves in some way.
Mhm.
Doesn't always work out well, but I thought it was an interesting take. I'm not sure the story needed to be retold again. I thought Van Jensen did a good job, but we'll see if it sticks. It's weird. John's origin and House too, to some degree, have been retold a number one of times, and each time they're tweaked just a little bit. And sometimes they stick around, sometimes they don't. But it's hard to, as a fan, sometimes to know what's what, and to stick it, like you said, in the world's finest annual. If somebody didn't read the solicit and know it was there, would they know it was there? Probably not. And why
Probably not.
why not make it a backup in the Green Lantern Corps thing? Now, I don't know whether it's tied to the whole history of the DC Universe thing that Mark Waid is working on, because Mark Waid is the main writer on Batman Superman World's Finest. And that's why they stuck it in there, because it's kind of tied to that, or they're retelling different parts of DC history in some of those books. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure. I just thought it was an odd placement.
Yeah, I agree. It is
But
strange.
if you're a John Stewart fan, it's worth picking up. If you're not that huge of a fan, or you're just a casual fan, it really doesn't. My problem with some of this stuff is you don't see anywhere in the publication history of the character where any of this has had any impact on him. So it's kind of hard to accept it as a new thing. It'd be like suddenly if Hal had something in his childhood that shaped who he was, but yet in the entire publication history of the character, he's never talked about it or reflected on it before. It's kind
Yeah.
of you know what I mean? It's a weird thing.
It's a variable that doesn't exist, so why
Yeah,
bring it to the
yeah.
forefront now? Yeah,
We've inserted it after the fact, and now it doesn't have any relevancy to what's going on.
right.
Now, will Morgan Hampton, as he's writing Green Lantern Corps, use some of this stuff? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if he does do anything like that, because then it would give it a little more weight
I
into it
suppose.
all. It does change the dynamic between Hal and John as to how it started, because back in Green Lantern 87, John was very much the stereotypical 70s angry black man, and Hal was kind of the somewhat naive to the struggles of black people individual. And so their relationship was kind of, I don't want to say contemptuous, but it didn't start off on a good foot, because
Mhm.
all Hal saw was an angry person who was jumping to conclusions, and all John Stewart saw was the stereotypical white guy who's blind to their struggles. So,
Right.
maybe it's a better retelling of for the times, but why the Manhunter was going after John seems a little weird, and John saving Hal by sticking a piece of metal into a Manhunter is a little off for me. Maybe, the cynical person could say, well, the Guardians were trying to convince John that he needed to be a Green Lantern, so they sent the Manhunter after him, hoping to change his mind. Who knows? You could go down that rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, though, the way that the Guardians are sometimes portrayed.
Well, and it all comes down to two. He's just, I don't read World's Finest, so
Yeah, I don't either.
I really don't. I haven't gotten into it because Batman's in it. So,
It would have triggered your allergy.
yeah,
I missed out on new comic book or free comic book day, but I understand you got to go.
I did. I did. I picked up Mark Russell's Speed Racer, which was fantastic. It's good to see this in print form. Big fan of the series. I love the movie. I
I
mean,
loved the TV show when I was a kid. It was
right.
among my favorite things. I remember taking a Hot Wheels and painting it to white and putting the symbol on it, because they didn't make any merch back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, and the movie was cool. Got this guy, which is a cool cover.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. And my boy, Black Hand.
Oh, there you go.
and the Kilowog. And I picked up those Solomon Kane books. And that Energon, this is that Energon universe, that G.I. Joe Transformers crossover. That was about it. A couple other things. Oh, I picked up that Jonah Hex print from that artist. Funny story. When a guy was sitting there and he had it on display and he was drawing whatever he was drawing, and I said, "Man, I really like that Jonah Hex. How much you want for it?" And he kind of stops what he was doing. He looks at me, and he looks at it. He goes, "Well, I really wasn't looking at selling it." I said, "Well, okay. I don't want to. It's yours. I don't want to take it off your hands." He goes, "If you want to buy it, that's up to you. Throw me an offer." I said, "Well," I pulled out my cash. I said, "We don't take card, right?" He goes, "No." So I pulled out some cash. I go, "Got 38 bucks here." He goes, "I'll take it. It's yours." I said, "As long as you sign it." So he goes, "Well, it's already signed." I go, "No, no, I want something personal on there." So he put some stuff on there, and
Nice,
yeah, that's
nice.
cool. Nice guy, man. Real nice guy.
That's great. Now I understand you got to hang out with some Green Lantern royalty.
Some Green Lantern royalty, the great grandson. Yeah, I went and picked him up, and him and I went. Started raining real bad. We were gonna hang out afterwards and go to another shop, but no, we quit and ducked out. But I didn't spend as much as I thought I would. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I didn't. I was out of town and did not have time to go. Uh, we've talked before in the past. I do this drone soccer program at work, and the national championships were that weekend, and I was officiating at the national championships. So my time was booked for the entire weekend, but
Sure.
great experience. Um,
Good times.
Definitely. So we've got some comments to talk about. Green Lantern Corps 2, 3, and 4. Plus, we've got some listener feedback. So let's pause for a second and then we'll jump right into it. All right? Take it easy. We'll be right back.
Listen up, Lanterns. It's time you took the oath with Green Lantern John Stewart. In brightest day, in blackest night, don't let the podcast of Oa escape your sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
All right, Green Lantern Corps number 2. This is co-written by Jeremy Adams and Morgan Hampton. Art by Fernando Pasarin. In continuation of the story with Thanagar. Thanagar was destroyed by Mogo during the whole Civil War special thing that went on. And so the team has been sent to Thanagar, and it's John Stewart and Hawkwoman, Razor, and Kilowog that are en route. And again, the whole issue's got a lot of Hawkwoman, John Stewart stuff, and I am of two minds of it. It really it doesn't appeal
You've
to
never
me.
been a fan of that. You've
Yeah,
never liked that. I think that, like you had always said, that all stems from the animated, right?
sure. And they try to play off that, just like they're playing off of Razor being here from the Green Lantern the animated series. I thought it was neat to see him pop up. I'm not sure I necessarily wanted to see him be an ongoing character, but interesting story as it starts out. The one thing that jumped out to me immediately, though, was the conversation between Dexter and Atrocitus.
Hmm.
It's like, where the heck did Dexter learn to talk?
Right.
In the past, the way Dexter's ability to communicate worked was that the power rings, the Red Lantern power rings, have the translate ability in it. And so they were able to translate Dexter's really primitive thoughts into words. But here he's carrying on like a whole freaking conversation, and neither one of them have a power ring on. So, I don't know. It bugs me a bit because it just seems sometimes that writers don't look at continuity in any way, shape, or form and don't respect it. And it's kind of that lack of respect for what came before you kind of thing.
Right. I get it.
It was built into the whole thing. It was part of the charm of the character was that Dexter couldn't communicate in any real way, and to see the ring be able to translate his thoughts about, me, good kitty, and all that kind of stuff was really kind of cool. And it made the character more interesting, but just having him be like a talking alien. I mean, he's a human cat, not a human cat. He's an Earth cat. That was a little odd. The fight that takes place inside, seeing Bleeze depowered and in this weird kind of a BDSM outfit, I thought was a little odd. Like, why is she got her face covered? Little odd things like that bug me.
What do you think about the art?
The art was okay. Fernando Pasarin is usually pretty good, so I didn't really have a problem with the art per se. Fernando Pasarin never does Kilowog particularly well for me.
I was gonna say, but I
I
did like Zox. I thought he did Zox really
Well,
well.
yeah, and Zox is kind of the surprise at the end of the issue,
Hmm.
and again, it goes back to the continuity thing. And these guys aren't the first ones to do it. I mean, Zox showed up in the Green Lanterns run. Sam Humphries completely ignored what happened, and so he also showed up during the Thorn run. And Zox, if people recall, Zox was a pivotal character in the Red Lantern series. And once Charles Soule took over that book, that series became like a must read. And Zox had a terrific arc in that book. This was when Guy Gardner became a Red Lantern, and he basically leads a civil war amongst the Red Lanterns.
Hmm. That was a
Uh,
good book.
yeah, it was. And Zox had such a great death scene. Whereas there was a running gag earlier on where basically Guy Gardner called Zillia Zox a testicle with teeth, and Zox didn't know what a testicle was. And so he tries to find out what his testicle is during the run. And as he's piloting the ship, where he knows he's going to die, Zox sacrifices himself very nobly. And he finds out what a testicle is and he laughs about it. And that's one of the last panels you see Zox. It was such a great, almost heroic death for the character. The arc was complete. And then writers, you know, these guys are not the first ones, like I said, to bring Zox back, but he's back again. And it kind of, I don't know, it undoes things. I understand, you can't keep a great character down, but at the same time, some things have to, if things don't, if death doesn't have meaning, then when it happens, it loses any value it has as a storytelling device.
I don't think death has any meaning in comics at all
Not at all.
these
You're
days.
right. You're absolutely right. I mean, there are some characters who've been dead and stayed dead. I think Uncle Ben is still dead. I think Bruce Wayne's parents are still dead.
Jonathan Kent's touch and go, depending on who's writing it, I guess. Not Jonathan Kent, Pa Kent, his
Yeah.
dad.
Martin Jordan is still dead.
Yeah,
So
well,
there,
that's stayed the same.
there's some things that are consistent, but others aren't. I liked that Atrocitus is looking for nth metal, and we don't find out necessarily in this issue as to why, but it has something to do with the Red Lanterns, and we find that out when we get to issue 3. I thought though it was interesting too that Bleeze realizes that Atrocitus is using them. We don't know exactly what's happened. We know that the United Planets lanterns destroyed the central battery, and we don't know yet how these guys survived because we know when the Red Lanterns die, or when the Red Lantern ring comes off, a Red Lantern dies because a lot of their critical cardiac systems are tied to the power battery, and so they can't survive without their rings. So how they survive, we don't know. And I'm happy that Adams, and I'm sure Adams is probably the one directing this part of it, is trying to follow up on that because it is one of those questions where everybody's like, well, what happened with the Red Lanterns? How did they survive? And so on. So I like the fact that we're getting that piece of the story. And I liked how the Nth Metal fits into it. I thought that was really cool. I also liked the Kilowog versus Sorrow Lantern stuff that shows up in this issue.
Hmm.
I thought that was great. I like that Atrocitus thinks that the Green Lanterns had something to do with what happened because he doesn't know about the United Planets stuff and the United Planets lanterns. So he, of course, thinks that John Stewart and Hawkwoman are there to stop him for reasons other than the reasons they're there to stop him.
So I would assume he's using constructs here.
Yeah, he's using constructs. We don't know why yet, and how he's able to manifest constructs goes back to the whole fractured spectrum thing. Because we've seen characters without necessarily having a ring doing constructs during this fractured spectrum storyline, just because of the strength of their emotion. So we're assuming that as well. But yeah, I loved Kilowog fighting against Sorrow and Sorrow not working on him. I also liked how when Sorrow showed up, it really impacted Razor, and he brought up Aya, which is nice. Again, I don't know. I I love the Green Lantern animated series, and I want to see it live on, but we're never going to get that to happen. Seeing it on the comic pages, I'm kind of two minds. One is its own thing, if you try to shoehorn all of that in, it isn't going to line up. Maybe it's kitty corner to it, but I don't.
I've always felt like Razor feels like an oddball.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
I think they should go back. I honestly think they should lead him into going back to being a Red Lantern. I think that's something that could go down the line, and I think it would be a good kind of arc for him
Yeah,
because I think that's what people remember him the most of.
yeah. I mean,
Can't deal, I
fans really
can't
wanted
deal
to
well
see
with the
him.
hope thing.
Yeah, I mean, fans really wanted to see him find Aya, and I wanted to see him find Aya too. To me, my greatest disappointment in the cancellation of the show is that we didn't at least get a movie follow-up, a direct-to-video movie of some sort. I think that would have been warranted, and I think it would have done very well for them. And they just kind of abandoned it, which is unfortunate. What did you think about the giant nth metal egg in the core of Thanagar?
Something's being born.
It's interesting. It does not surprise me because nth metal is so intricately linked to Thanagarian history and so on. It doesn't surprise me that there's a core of nth metal at the heart of the planet. That doesn't surprise me at all. I think it's interesting. I think it's cosmic history we have not plumbed the depths of, so to speak. So I like seeing it here because to me that's where Green Lantern Corps books shines is in the science fiction elements.
Well, not only that,
S-
back on Thanagar too. I mean, that
Yeah,
in this crossover with Thanagar, and I like when they include those aspects of the Green Lantern universe with them. I wish
yeah.
Zod would come over to the Green Lantern Corps stuff.
One of my favorite stories during the Venditti era was that whole storyline with Zod
Yeah,
in Hal and the Green Lantern Corps. That was such a good story. I did like seeing that as well. So yeah, I like the Green Lantern mythology connecting to the larger cosmic history of the DCU. And we don't get enough of that. I think as much as everybody liked the Jeff Johns run and it was obviously commercially and critically successful, it got away from some of that because it was so busy telling the stories of the emotional spectrum that kind of took over and dominated early on. There were a lot of other stories with the Spider Guild and some good classic sci-fi DC universe stories, which I miss. So seeing it here was a pleasure. And despite, the whole issue of, the Hawk Woman John Stewart thing, which kind of irks me a little. I should say irks me, that's strong language. It doesn't
it just doesn't resonate with you.
no, not at all.
I don't mind it per se. But I don't want. I hope it's not drawn out. Like,
Yeah,
don't draw this crap out. I mean,
yeah.
at least have these two people have a conversation like adults should. Maybe I don't know if you're gonna plan something for these two, then make sure you plan it right. Don't give us this long process of them guys having this tension,
Yeah.
whatever tension it is. Oh, I haven't seen you since the
I
animated
think
days.
I think that's the part that bugs me more than anything else. It's like, okay, you're implying that they had a relationship and whatnot. Just do it if you're going to do it, but
Mm.
no pussyfooting around it and with this mock moonlighting tension between these two people. I don't need to see all that. Either do it or don't do it. Have strength in your convictions. But this issue leads right into issue three, and I did like as a counterpoint to the issue two. I did like the conversation we have at the end between Shiera and John. That I liked. But anyway, we find out how the Red Lantern survived. I really liked the Red Lantern point of view. Jurassic saw what he saw. He basically, because of his distrust of the Guardians, thinks it was a plan all along by the Green Lanterns, and he certainly would. I mean, I think that's true to the character's nature.
Sure.
And we see Zox being angrier than the others. Why he's angrier than Atrocitus at this, I don't know. But Zox ends up going on to be able to fuel the ship because of the nth metal, and that drives why Atrocitus is doing what he's doing. He's not there to steal the nth metal for some nefarious purposes. He's trying to keep Zox alive because of the amount of energy he's putting out, nothing can absorb it but the nth metal. So his mission becomes one which on the surface looks one way, but is really another. And it's diametrically opposed to what the Thanagarians want, but at least his cause is somewhat noble, which I always liked. The Charles Soule part of the Green Lantern or the Red Lantern run was really good because you got to know so much more about the Red Lanterns and some of the, I don't want to say nobility because that's not the right choice of words, but how they're not bad. They're just drawn that way. No, they're they have their motivations. There's reasons why. I mean, the whole story with Bleeze, and I can't remember whether Peter Milligan wrote that or Charles Soule did or who wrote that, but the tragedy that drives these characters is huge. Their rage is justified, and that's what I thought was so good about that book. And we got to see more than them being just rage-fueled creatures. And here we see the same thing. Atrocitus is going about it maybe in a way that it isn't it isn't a collaboration with the Vanagurians saying, "Hey, can I get some nth metal for this reason?" He's not going to be that way about it. He's just going to go take what he thinks is his, which is unfortunate for what happens. But then we see what happens with the egg does hatch, and Horus is there, and the arrival of Horus I just thought was great. Again, this is Fernando Pasaran artwork, and I thought the Hawk World stuff, especially the arrival of Horus, was fantastic.
Yeah, that was awesome looking. I really like the color palette on Hawkwoman.
Yeah, yep,
No, I like what they did with her armor and stuff like that. I think it looks really, really sweet on her.
yeah, yeah. I thought the inks and the coloring were done really well, were really
Mhm.
solid. And I like how he gave us like some contrast to all the green, right? Again, again with Dexter and the conversationalist parts kind of bugged me a bit. The other thing that kind of bugged me in this artwork wise was I don't know, it's just there's some things about it I'm not so thrilled with, but most of it looked great. I love the destruction of the ship and John holding it together while they try to figure what's going on, and Zox is still there. And essentially, I liked how Hawkwoman used her mace to calm down Zox. And the only thing that made me think that I thought was kind of a little bit of a plot hole was if all they needed was that little tiny bit of her mace. Why
Right.
did, why did they need all of that? They could have just gotten a little bit and been happy. I like the heroic part of Atrocitus trying to absorb it. I thought that was cool. I thought there was a bit of a missed opportunity because you've got Razor with all that history with the Red Lanterns, and it kind of just went by the side. He mentions he was once a part of them, but Atrocitus I would have thought would have been a lot angrier to see Razor than what he is.
Yeah, I would have figured to call him a traitor or something.
Yeah, I expected something with that, and I do like the solution to the Red Lantern problem in putting them in stasis, and how Atrocitus is thoroughly ticked off about the fact that you're just doing this to put us aside, whatnot. But it is really the only way they can protect him at this point.
Right. I
And
guess
then
so it's a cryo freeze then.
yeah, yeah. So they get cryofrozen. So the Red Lanterns are on ice, literatively and figuratively, but with a story-driven reason, which makes sense. Once this is all done, will they get let go? That's the question I've got is if this story gets over with and we get the power batteries back for all the Lantern cores, will they let the Red Lanterns out?
Oof,
Will we stick by, will the Green Lantern Corps stick by what they said?
that's a moral dilemma.
Isn't it though? It certainly is a moral dilemma. And like I said earlier, I did really like the conversations between Shiera and John here. And they're talking about the whole Ellie thing. I find it interesting that she's the only one that thinks the thing with Ellie is a problem.
Who, Shira?
Yeah,
Shira, yeah.
she's the only one that seems to be there's a problem there. And I thought, I don't know. It's interesting that it's taking this long for somebody to point it out. And maybe we'll get payoff. Maybe it's just at a pace that it is something I think should have been faster, but we'll see how it all comes out to play in the long run as things go on.
It was a cute moment for him though. I like the table scene, it's just
Yeah,
you don't get many like moments of levity this book was been pretty intense for a couple
yeah,
of years, so
agreed.
having a moment of levity in here was kind of nice between the two of them.
Well, and I think it's something that's missing a lot in comics is there's so much action we don't get the conversation between the characters.
Right.
This scene had a lot of depth to it, and I thought it was good for both characters. It underscores the kind of relationship they have. And that John, I don't think, feels he can open up. And this is just my interpretation. I don't think John feels he can open up to anybody else in the Green Lantern Corps because he's got a facade to keep up.
Yeah.
That he can't drop that barrier he's got with anybody. That he needs to be strong for everyone. And if he shows what might be perceived as weakness, that he would lose his standing in some way. And I think that's irrational, but we're human, right? Humans are irrational.
We are.
But
And then we see the Sorrow Lantern. I
yeah,
think
I
it's
need them all. And if I had any criticism of this whole Starbreaker Sorrow Lantern plot, it's that it just seems to be shifted to the background all the time. There's no sense of urgency, right?
it doesn't even seem like they're driving it, even if they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, all right, so you reveal these two at the beginning, but all of a sudden now they're not doing anything, but everybody else is doing everything. Now, I don't know if they want us to lead us to believe that they're not the ones pulling the strings, but
Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like it was a sidestep of what the overall plot should be. But I guess it's part of the journey of the story is that it takes you on twists and turns.
it does.
I guess we'll take it at that. So that leaves us with Green Lantern Corps number 4. Artist overhaul change. This does not have artwork by Fernando Pasarin. It's got V. Ken Marion as the artwork.
Not a
And
big fan of it. It's okay, but not a
it
huge
it's
fan.
all right. I'm right there with you. V. Ken Marion is somebody who, at least for a while, lived about an hour away from me, and I've always been interested in his artwork because he's somewhat local for me. But his artwork has always been hit or miss, and for this one for me it was more miss than hit.
It looks, I mean, if I might, it anime kind of style, almost border anime.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah,
And
it's
I've
got
never
that kind of
been
style to
anime
it.
kind of like it. I mean, I could see Speed Racer instead of Guy Gardner right now.
The other big problem I had with this issue in terms of the artwork was Guy Gardner's boots are green, not white. It's one of my pet peeves is the boots being the wrong color. And this issue is filled with the wrong color boots. So it immediately goes to the bottom of the list of my ranked issues of this series so far, just because of the white boots. I'm also not sold on the Jessica posturing in the opening of this book.
No, you didn't like that?
No, I don't.
I saw it as a kind of a guy showing respect for her role.
Yeah, I just felt her reactions are very un-Jessica like.
I don't know. I mean, that did seem kind of abrupt for her to say, you have about 1 second to get your hand off my desk before I take it off.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Because
mean,
Guy Gardner would be the kind of person like, I'd like to see you try.
right. But he does capitulate, you know, he's like, all right.
Yep. Well, and then she plays into his ego by saying, "Well, only you can train these people. I need your help." And that play on him, but I don't see her as an administrative type at all. And the risk is, and it's the same risk that they have with Kyle, is what makes the character appeal to an audience are certain elements. For Kyle, it was the everyman Green Lantern. He was the only one left, and now that's all gone. And now he's a veteran. And as a veteran, he doesn't carry the same attractiveness. That's why they don't know what to do with him. And with Jessica, so much time and energy was spent building up her anxiety and her mental health challenges and so on. And now it's like completely ignored. And
So,
now she's just another Green Lantern.
how would you feel about Joe Mullane being in the role of administrator of the Green Lantern Corps?
It would make more sense in terms of lore because she was kind of in charge during the whole Thorn run. At least she's got a history of being in somewhat of an authoritative role as a policeman. I could see that more. Um, Not a fan of the character, but I see her more in the role that I do Jessica.
I get it. I understand.
I'd much rather see Salak in the role.
What about a fragging Dungarian piece of vomit?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I think about Narf.
No,
Or as I want to, as my headcanon is, Nort Jr. Um,
I'm thinking Snarf. Snarf.
I've seen a lot of analogies to Snarf.
Yeah. But whatever. He's kind of quirky.
And I think a part of it is we're led to believe that there's something special about Narf.
Right.
And we get through the issue and there really isn't anything special about Narf, at least in this issue yet, that we see. the
I
payoff is
wasn't,
taking longer than yeah. I don't
why
know
is
whether I'm
that
just
critical?
I don't know if I'm just that impatient as I've gotten older.
Mm.
but
Well, I'm trying to understand what's critical about Narf to where we have to wait for the big reveal that he has
well,
some
yeah.
special power. Narf
Well,
of all people.
the thing is, the longer it goes, the more special it's got to be to have any value, right?
Yeah, I
So it better
guess.
be something freaking hysterically huge and impressive at this point. But yeah, I agree. And the art really shows up here too in the Guy Gardner and his expressions and his hairstyle as this goes on. It's a bit I don't know, it's a bit much.
Hey, but I will say, as far as structure and this particular book, I thought it was fun showing the dynamics of the core in different elements.
Yeah, yeah. That
And
that's
I
some of the
think
stuff
that
we've missed, right?
yeah, and I think that's where this issue really stands out. I mean, you got you got the Kilowog training, and then he's the old guard, right? And so is Gardner's,
Right.
and then Gardner walks in, he's like, "Oh, the memories," you know. And it's like you think back to how long it's been since we've read Green Lantern Corps books. Man, that was a long time ago when these
Yeah.
guys were the young Green Lantern Corps, and now fast forward to where we are, and they're the ones training the young Corps. It's kind of a weird moment, man, when I caught that when I was reading this book, and I was like, oh,
I
it's
would
the
have liked
same
to have
regard.
seen some more of the Van Jensen era, Tomasi era characters starting to show up. We saw 2/6 and so on, but I'd like to see some of the other ones show up that were like Box and some. And we know
There's
some of them who
critical
died,
ones.
but what's that?
There's critical ones that I think they should start name dropping or at least appearing or
Yeah.
making mention of. I mean, there's a lot of ones that are unique in a simple way that is to the Green Lantern Corps books, right? I mean, the universe. So
The problem is you have to balance the characters that fans want to read about with the new characters. And so the problem you run into is you've got to give so much panel time to the human Earth Lanterns, and you've got to infuse these new characters that you're bringing in. There's very little room left for anybody else. And to me, that's part of the problem with our this franchise
yeah.
is that it's bloated with characters, and everybody's got their favorites. But I miss the alien characters. And I loved seeing the dynamic between Kilowog and Guy. That's always been one of my more fun relationships to read about, and one of the most fun dynamics to read about. And it made me realize how much I miss that stuff and how we just don't get to see enough of it anymore because we've got to give panel time to all these different characters, and we're not seeing some of the characters that have become loved. Ismat Cole, and I mean, and we know some of them have died, but I mean, come on, Zilly Zox is back. So where's Muck Muck?
Well, not only that, you also I was thinking about the characters themselves, right? I mean, so like the Green Lantern Corps book that I remember a long time ago, and you talk about how you can't fit those in. It always felt so massive and so big. Like the Green Lantern Corps was an enormous entity, and it had its tendrils everywhere. And now, of course, a lot of stuff led up to this, and now the core is not as big as it used to be. So it seems kind of self-contained, right? They're just kind of
Yeah, yeah.
along. I do genuinely don't think you can hide a whole entire planet like Mogo. So I think that at some point Mogo should be around or be doing something all the time. Because I don't think you can just take him off screen and get rid of him.
I
But
think that's where I think this book. It's in its early issues, right? This is the fourth issue we're talking about.
right, it's
If
early.
if this book picks up some steam, I really, 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 really would like to see DC make the book a little bigger and give us a backup story of the Tales of the Green Lantern Corps so we could see some of these characters.
Agreed.
I just think there's
Or
so
a core team up, and just have,
yeah,
like a couple stories of you know maybe Kyle going on a mission
yeah.
with that molecule Green Lantern,
I mean, it doesn't have to be an origin story every issue or any of that kind of things, but just adventures that are of other things that are going on besides the main story with these characters. There's so much there that could be told.
and
Uh,
think of what you could do with like you get a Green Lantern that's an equation. I mean, think the stories you could tell with that.
right.
I mean,
And why don't we have more Green Lantern Corps stories like that? I mean, it just doesn't add up. Um,
God, it took me a minute.
Anyway,
It took me a minute. I was like, oh yeah, there it is.
got to get
Uh,
something in there somewhere.
that was good. All right. So we so we run into your favorite Green Lantern of all time.
I the other reason why this is my least favorite issue is we've got Simon, Kelly, and Ellie.
Yeah, I know you don't like
Oh,
Kelly. So the Simon and Kelly bit was a little fun. I don't know. I haven't seen Simon without his mask on in forever. I forgot what the dude looked like, to be honest with you.
and I get that he's building a construct car and building it for the sake of doing it because he liked to tinker with vehicles. I just thought it was interesting that he has real tires back there.
Yeah.
He- was he going to put real tires on a construct car? I don't know. It was just interesting, but it totally is in character for me to him to be working on a car. I just cannot get past the whole Kelly and Ellie thing. I find them so incredibly annoying. Why did we have to bring Kelly back? We could have just left her in the coma and been done with it. It's
Cruel, man. That's mean.
and the the whole thing with Ellie, it just doesn't. I get that they bring levity, and I get that they bring the childness wonder of things, but I don't
I
know.
don't know why they would need that in here.
I don't either.
I mean,
There's
they're going
other
to a robotic Starro type world. So why do you need to bring kids along to that nonsense?
yeah, yeah.
My kid's not going to that.
Well, I'm like, what does Simon Baz think's taking these two kids to this Starro Necropia
Necrocopia.
thing?
Yeah, Necropia.
Necropia. What makes him think this is a good idea? I mean, you've got two minors and you're taking them to this place with all these things, and then you leave Ellie alone in a construct car.
Ellie's a construct though, so
I guess a construct girl in a construct car. Uh,
not much can happen to her.
I think the idea of Necropia is cool.
It
Taking
reminded me of that place on Guardians, that
oh
nowhere, wherever it was.
nowhere, yeah,
No, it kind of reminded me of that because you
yeah,
get this just this sleazy dealer here. They're
yeah.
looking for something, and this
I
guy,
totally get the same vibe off of it, and
yeah,
I like the vibe. No, don't get me wrong, but it's just not a place I'd want to see Simon Baz with two kids.
no, but the quirkiness comes when they run into Narf and Guy.
Yeah, yeah. And they're at this Enzo's Emporium, equipment emporium, and Enzo wants the gauntlet. Shocker. Uh, and I guess that's somewhat interesting being in that place. All the more reason why Simon has some really bad judgment when it comes to this whole thing. I get that they're trying to give you Big Brother vibes, but I mean, this was not a place to take a kid.
Well, not only that, you got Baz sitting there talking like how, like counteroffer, you sell us the sonic battery and we
Yeah,
don't seize all your illegal goods. I
it.
so that leads me to believe that Baz has been in that knows this place, knows him.
Yeah,
But again, all right, I'm not looking for like full on breadcrumbs here for leading up to a characterization. But it's somewhere along the way, it would have been nice to like have, I don't know, some kind of drop to where this links to something he's done in the past. I don't know. It just seems
yeah,
out of nowhere, right?
right, right. And we don't know everything that's gone on with Simon Baz and whatnot, but that's part of the problem with Simon Baz is who is he
Well, and not only that, when
anymore?
have we ever seen Necrocopia? I've never seen that place
No,
before.
that's it's new, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with there being a new place.
Yeah,
I think it's really cool. So I have no problem with that. It's just the poor judgment and Baz being portrayed as now we know if you look back at Baz's origins, he was chosen because Hal's ring and Sinestro's ring kind of fused. And so the ring chose somebody that was a little bit of both, right?
hmm,
So it doesn't surprise me too much of his characterization being that way, but it's also really kind of the first time we've ever seen it be that way. So it just seems a little forced.
get it. I get it.
We then see Guy show up with his white boots, with Narf on Necrocopia. What are the odds that in the entire universe they'd go to the same place that Simon Baz went to?
Right.
Uh, a little, a little far-fetched, but whatever. We'll go with it, right? And then we see Evil Star, which I love Evil Star.
Yeah,
We
Evil
haven't
Star is
seen
cool.
Evil Star since the Morrison run when he was in really bad shape in that hospital. I don't know if you remember, but he was in really bad shape in a hospital, and Hal showed up there at one point. And they even I applaud them for giving us a reason as to not a reason, but how he got out of that situation. So
Oh,
that's
they
fine.
tie it together. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they tied it together. At least they didn't throw it out of the blue, like Zelia socks. Not that they, again, not that they were the first ones to bring Zelia socks back, but I want to know how Evil Star gets this kind of position when he doesn't even have a star band or a Starlings. But I think it's a cool role for the character. It's kind of a gangstery type. It's different.
Hmm.
I don't know why he thinks that why Guy thinks that Evil Star knows where Starbreaker is.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that. What here's the thing. This place seems like it's been here before. You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
Necrocopia, right? So, all right. So if you're gonna go with that kind of premise, right? So Guy knew that, the evil star was gonna be on Necrocopia, right? Conversely, Baz and Kelly, or Baz himself, knew to go to Necrocopia to get the psionic battery that they're seeking.
yeah,
Right? So, I mean, looking at those two judgments, I mean, that's not coincidental. I mean, that's
right, right. And there you see, Enzo tries to get the thing and traps Kelly and Simon Baz in a mind maze of sorts, is what they call it. And he's trying to take the gauntlet off. Good luck with that because the Guardians couldn't do it.
hmm he's drilling now.
Yeah. And Guy gets on the wrong side of Evil Star. Nothing major there, really.
Give it
But
your best shot, you friggin' low life pizza.
it's the lighthearted action adventure part of the story, which is fine. Which is fine. I thought it was serviceable. You see Ellie showing up and trying to help Simon, and it ends with a retelling at the beginning of the retelling of Kelly's origins. I'm like, are we really going to spend an issue retelling Teen Lantern's origin? Because she's not a Green Lantern. Sorry,
And well, it says Teen
Jeremy
Lantern's
Morgan,
origin a
she's not a
lie.
Green Lantern. What's that?
It says Teen Lantern's origin a lie, plus the return of Space Cabbie.
I'm all for Space Cabbie, but
I'm not all for Teen Lantern.
the old phrase we used to see that because you demanded it.
Yeah.
Kelly's origin because nobody demanded it. Oh,
I don't know why. I Is she supposed to be some kind of important character in this book? I
well,
guess
I guess when you talk about character bloat, I'd rather see the panel time spent on. I could think of a dozen other characters that'd be far more interesting than Kelly Quintella.
could not agree more.
Don't care about her origin and trying to make it more than what it was, which is basically her stealing Green Lantern tech.
I just don't. I don't like her because I don't see the appeal.
No,
Like,
I
I
don't
mean,
either.
it'd be cool. I mean, I bet you she'd be like fun for kids. I mean, and I don't know why she's not over on like a kids kind of Green Lantern book with her in it. That'd be like a cool little thing to have where doohickey. I mean, kids get off on that kind of stuff. I just don't understand what she's doing in in this type of book, right? She doesn't
Yeah,
seem like she seems out of place. Like
right.
she should be like, and I'm not trying to say this to sound like a sexist, but she should like be like with the Teen Lanterns kind of thing or something, you know? I don't know. And again, I'll double
I,
down like you said. I don't like her either.
no,
I
she's
don't
got
care either
stolen.
way.
She's got stolen tech. She's not a hero. She's got stolen technology.
She's running around having
Take the
a good
technology
time.
back and send her back to where she came from. I'm sorry. It's just
No, I get it, man. I don't see her point either. I don't.
no. I've never been. It's like the same with the Sinestro, the son of Sinestro thing. Whatever.
Where are we now? I haven't heard anything about Sinestro's son or anything.
Yeah, I haven't either in a while, and nor do I care. I
They
think it
don't
might.
mention it in Green Lantern because Sinestro sure in the heck ain't talking about his kid.
No, no, you're right. You're right. I have no interest in seeing it or reading about it or anything. And the book did not sell well at all, and no shocker. And I think that the next issue, the series started out strong in terms of sales. I bet you a lot of people are going to skip next issue because by and large, she is the least popular. I mean, we rail on Simon Baz all the time, but I find very few people who like the character at all. Would not surprise me if people look at it, skim through the issue, and put it back on the rack.
Well, there's a reason I don't rail on her a lot. It's because I don't care about her.
Hmm.
Simon, I care about because I care enough to send the very best, and that is to rail on him because I don't like him. I hope that kind of explains it a little bit. I
Yeah,
just don't care about Kelly at all. She's irrelevant to me. I mean, when she shows up, a lot of times I'll be honest with you, I skip her dialogue because
because you don't care.
I just don't think what is she bringing to the table? I mean,
Right.
I can pick up I'm smart enough to pick up on enough writing to know when somebody's saying something that's important. And it's usually structured the way it is around
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
I know she's not saying anything important. I know she's not saying anything relevant to me because whatever it is going to be revealed soon. So that's not a big miss for me.
It's interesting to me. I was thinking the other day about this run versus the Thorn run, and there are obviously things I like much more in the Adams run than the Thorn run. But the one thing I give Jeff Thorne credit for was recognizing the glut of human lanterns and trying to do something about it. May not have agreed in how he was trying to go about it, but at least he was trying to do something about it. He gave Simon Baz a new role. I don't remember what he did with Jessica. Oh, he made Jessica a Yellow Lantern.
Mhm.
Kyle was going to be in bad shape, and who knows what was going to happen with him. So he was at least trying to address it by moving some pieces around and getting those characters out of the way so that he could tell another story. Not that the story was all that great, but I give him credit for making those kind of bold decisions. The problem I have with Jeremy Adams and so far is he's trying to please everybody, and trying to please everybody, he's going to end up pleasing nobody.
Well, I think that comes with being a first-time writer of a big hit like Green. I mean, Flash might have been the same way with him. I don't know. I don't, I don't follow a lot of Flash fans, but Green Lantern's a different entity, right? So, I
Yeah,
mean, if you go to the gumption with the Flash series and you go hard into the Green Lantern one, you're never gonna you're you're never gonna please everybody in your
no,
fan. It's
no,
impossible,
not at
man.
all. And it's DC's fault because they've created this glut and no way for it to sustain itself and hold up under its own weight. You either sideline every character that's not a human, and then it just becomes like everything else. I mean, that's part of the appeal of Green Lantern and the Green Lantern lore is the whole science fiction element. And there was a thread on social media a little while ago on Reddit in particular, and it was like name the things that you think have been great for Green Lantern and the things that you think have been horrible for Green Lantern. And I almost posted it, and I knew it was going to be a spicy hot take, and I was going to get flamed for it. I was like, I don't have the energy to fight with people online. But I think personally, as a fan, and barbecue me and roast me if you want, but to me, the worst thing that has ever happened to Green Lantern was the additions of not Kyle, excuse me, the additions of Guy Gardner and John Stewart. Guy Gardner was never created to be a backup lantern for Hal. He was created to show why Hal was the right choice for the ring. It was a one and done. It
Right.
wasn't until they decided they were going to create John that they brought Guy back as well. And it led to this whole problem we have of adding writers adding their pet versions of characters.
Right.
Jeff Johns creates Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. Why? Well, creator royalties. That's why. You can create a character and tack a brand on it, and hopefully it sticks around. And if they get used in other media, you get royalties. They're not getting royalties for using John and Hal and Kyle and Guy. So you create your own. Then you get the situation with Joe Mullane. You get a writer who doesn't know squat about Green Lantern. Let her write a book for the sake of PR. She writes a book which some people think are great, is great, but she didn't know anything about Green Lantern. And what does she create? She creates a self insert for herself and creates a new character. That story could have been written just as easily with any other character.
Well, not only that, she creates a problem too, because then you
Uh-huh.
got to address the issue that comes with knowing your Green Lantern lore and that particular element not fitting into it, or being dismissive of it entirely, or blowing it out of the water,
Joe
which is
Mullane should have
sometimes worse.
stayed. Joe Mullane should have stayed a multiverse character.
A Far Sector character.
Yep, a Far Sector character, had her own thing and do some follow-ups with that. But folding her back in right now, she no longer has that special ring. What makes her unique to any other Green Lantern? Nothing. Same problem you have with Kyle right now is he doesn't stand out. So you've got this glut. So to me, Green Lantern would have been at its best if they just kept it with Hal and a bunch of aliens. That's part of the story. And for every Earth Lantern you add, you make the uniqueness of the ones that came before less.
Mm, that's true.
How many times have they retold an origin story that, Guy is now he would have been chosen as a Green Lantern, but he was further away. Now the ring traveled around the entire freaking planet, so what difference did the distance away make? Uh, but so now you've made Hal less special because Guy has to be equally as special to get the ring. Then the same thing happens with John. Well, we have to age up Hal to make it look like John couldn't have been a viable candidate. Otherwise, he would have got the ring if he was old enough at the time when Abin Sur died. So now you've got this whole dynamic where we've aged Hal up. With each iteration, you're weakening the entire mythology just to add another Earth Lantern when you can tell the same stories and even better using the alien characters. Who is Star Trek? Who is the most popular character in Star Trek?
I would venture to guess it would be Captain Kirk
Mr. Spock,
or Spock. Yeah,
the alien character.
the alien.
Who was the most popular character on Star Trek: The Next Generation? Data. Again, not a human character. There's so many good stories you can tell with those characters, and there's so many great Green Lantern characters, and we have to be sidelined with making panel space for X, Y, and Z.
Well, not only that though, if you're going to go that route, make sure your character's not one dimensional.
Right,
If you're
right.
gonna have an alien character, it's got to have a depth to it. So
Sure.
that
I
means
mean,
you got to be creative with their premise. You got to be creative with their personality. You got to get creative with how you want the persona to be represented on whatever
yep.
media form you put it out there on.
We are about to, for GL June, to be talking about Green Lantern Corps Recharge. And you want to talk about creating interesting alien characters. There's the playbook right there. There are some fantastic characters in that 6-issue story. It's the origin of Soren Ignatu, and what a great story.
We get to do issue number 1.
We do get to do issue number 1. I can't wait to talk about it. But when
All right.
when we do the episode, one of the things I'm going to say, mark my words, is if you compare the beginnings of the Green Lantern Corps there to the beginnings of the Green Lantern Corps here, what a difference.
Oh,
What a
it's
difference.
huge difference. Yeah, I
But
totally agree.
not that I dislike the book. Don't get me wrong. I just think that DC has made a situation which it's a no-win situation. No matter whenever you do an adaptation, somebody's not going to be happy. Whenever you do a new book or a new story, I mean, there are already John Stewart fans crying about issue 4, saying, "Where's John?" I've read people saying, "Why am I bothering to pick this book up? John's not in it."
There we go.
It's a fight for panel time, page space.
I'll happily read it. I don't need to be drawn in panel. I don't need my panel time.
All right.
Here. There's our panel time.
You're very right. You're very right. We've got some listener feedback to get through, so let's take a quick pause, and when we come back, we'll listen to your feedback and give you guys some feedback. So we'll be right back.
What up, dweebs? This is Guy Gardner. You're listening to the podcast of OA.
Our first message is from Brian. He's interested in what comics you read besides Green Lantern and has a couple of questions for Myron about his birth defect. Transmitting in 3, 2, 1.
I recently found your podcast, soon after I started reading Green Lantern for the first time with this current Jeremy Adams run. First, I wanted to say that I love the show, and listening to you guys make having become a Green Lantern fan even more enjoyable. I am curious, do either of you have any other characters/comics in your pull list, or are you strictly Green Lantern? So I guess my question about do you read/collect comics other than GL applies more to you, since I heard Phil mention Superman, and specifically Cyborg Superman is his favorite character. Also, in a recent episode one listened to recently, I'm primarily listening to current as of when the Jeremy Adams run started. You mentioned how Hal Jordan saved your life. Is that a story you are willing to share? I would love to hear it if you don't mind.
Hey, Brian, thanks for reaching out and welcome to the podcast of OA. I hope that we're adding something to your fan experience. I think that we try to add value to people's enjoyment. Hopefully, we don't rile people's feathers when we have a disagreement or an opinion difference, but whatever. Uh, you asked about what other things did we read besides Green Lantern, and Phil, you had commented when we talked about Cyborg Superman. We know that's your favorite character. Just for Brian's sake, what other things are you reading right now? I know you love G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I do GI Joe still. I mean, since the 80s. Let's see. Aquaman. I do Aquaman. Superman is fantastic. And then I do like the offshoot stuff, like Solomon Kane is pretty cool. That's a new one that's just coming out. Um, and I like delving into like the independently written graphic novels, the full stories and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
Sunstone is a great, I mean, if you're into that kind of thing. He's got a lot of volumes out with that. Um, G.I. Joe's cool. I don't do Transformers. I kind of stopped doing Transformers just because I'm sure I'm going to get enough of that on the G.I. Joe side because they're crossing those. But yeah, that's about it. Random stuff. I did pick up the new Supergirl. I'm going to give it a try and see if it aligns with what's coming out, with the movies and the media.
gotcha.
But
I'm not reading a lot of other DC stuff, and I don't read any Marvel stuff, but I'm reading a lot of the Ghost Machine books, the
hmm,
Guy Geiger and Redcoat. I'm reading most of those. I also like horror comics, so I've been reading, based on a recommendation from Chad over at the Lantern Cast. I'm reading Something is Killing the Children, but I'm
that's
reading
great.
it in trades. Really enjoyed that book.
Where
I
you
like
at
some
on
other. What's that?
where you at on that one? I got up to volume two.
I've finished volume two in the hardcovers, and I haven't read anything since then. And I haven't read the offshoot book for that either. But I've got them on my radar to read. I also like Mouse Guard, and although there hasn't been much in the Mouse Guard universe for a while, but I adore those books. I reread them pretty often. I also like some of the audience may be too young to remember the character, but there used to be a TV show in the 70s called Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Never heard of it.
And it was think of X-Files, but it was a news reporter. It only lasted one season, and it had two TV movies. I adored that as a child, and there's been a series of comics about that character, so I've been reading those. I just backed a book not too long ago that was a hardcover uh, anniversary thing for Kolchak the Night Stalker, and it had a bunch of comic stories that took place throughout his career as a journalist, plus some prose stuff. And I've also bought what's the other one? You ever see the movie Trick or Treat?
Hmm.
There's a hardcover of that as well, so I've got that and I read that. I'm also reading. I love the MonsterVerse Godzilla books when they come out. And
Yeah,
they're
those are
pretty
cool.
infrequent, but I enjoy those. And that's most of what I read. I do go back and read a lot of older stuff, primarily just because books are so expensive now, and I've got a lot of stuff I've bought that I haven't read yet because I haven't had time to read it. So I still have the Jack Kirby Fourth World Omnibus Absolute Editions, both volumes of those to read yet. So I've got a pretty good backlog of stuff.
That'd take you like 2 years.
Right, right. So I've got a pretty good backlog of stuff. But those are some of the things I enjoy. And I don't read as much as the DC stuff. Back in the day, I used to read almost every book that DC put out when I felt the universe was so connected, but I don't feel that the organicness of the universe anymore. So I don't feel compelled to read everything, but I
Mhm.
was reading almost all of it there for a while.
I did
Eh,
too, because it felt like you said that it felt like if something happened in one, it reverberated in the other.
yeah, and it wasn't that I felt like I had to read it to keep up, but it just felt like I was reading about one universe, and it just doesn't feel that way anymore. So I kind of dropped a lot of things there.
Right.
The other question you had, Brian, was about Hal Jordan saving my life. I'll share the story. I've shared it in the past, so I'll try to keep it kind of brief. I was born with a rare birth defect, and one out of every 3,000 kids on average is born with it. I'll put a graphic up to show you what it looks like. But it's a birth defect with the esophagus. You know, when you're developing in the womb, your esophagus comes down from your upper body and your lower body and connects. And there's a rare genetic birth defect where that doesn't happen correctly. And in my case, I have one of the rarest forms of it where the upper half grew into my lungs, my trachea, and the lower half just didn't connect to anything. And back in the days when I was born, you couldn't correct this very easily, and it was virtually undetectable because you didn't have ultrasound technology. The only reason why I'm even alive is that the doctor that delivered me had lost a baby to the same birth defect, and he began running physical probes down every baby's throat that he delivered, looking for it. And they were teaching the corrective procedure at Syracuse University Hospital. I live about 120 miles away from Syracuse. They drove me from the local hospital in an incubator, uh, and drove me and a nurse. My father drove me to Syracuse, and I had surgery, and I was in the hospital for the first 6 months of my life having it corrected. And the complication that came from that is that where they disconnected the esophagus upper half from my trachea and reconnected it, there's scar tissue. So I have right in this general area, I have a ring of scar tissue from where it's attached, and scar tissue doesn't flex like the rest of your esophagus does. So for my entire life, have struggled with choking problems, and I have to have it. Sometimes I have to have it stretched out because it constricts. And I've had a number of cases where I've choked and had very close calls. Again, this is in the days before 911, so you didn't have an easy way to call for things. It was also the era. I mean, I know this might shock some people, but we actually drank out of water hoses when I was a kid. Uh,
Same.
and parents were very lax with things. So as a kid, I'd get off the school bus, in elementary school and go home, and there'd be nobody in the house, and we were left to our own devices until mom and dad got home from work, right? And what kid doesn't come home from school and be hungry? And I would run into problems. And I remember a specific incident. I'll just use this as an example where I got some food lodged and I could not get the food down. And in trying to get some pressure by drinking fluids to get myself the pressure to push it down past the scar tissue, fluid builds up, and eventually it builds up to the point where it shuts off your trachea because it's filling the fluid and doesn't want the fluid to go down your lungs.
Mhm.
At that point, you stop breathing, right? So, uh, not to gross anybody out, but if I can't get the food to go down, I have to try to get the food to come up. So you're sticking your finger down your throat. And this is a young version of me. And I looked up to Green Lantern and Hal Jordan because, at least in those early stories and a lot of those early Silvered stories, Hal relied not so much on his physical abilities and his physical prowess, but his ability to think his way out of a situation. And that was what I gravitated towards. And there was a story, this issue in particular, Green Lantern 134 from the Silver Age, Bronze Age. It's a Marv Wolfman, Joe Staton issue. I've got it signed by both of them. In this story, Hal loses his power rig and he's stranded in the Arctic. And he goes blind, he goes snow blind, he fights a polar bear. Some of the corny stuff that would happen, but as a kid, this really influenced me. And when I ran into this situation this particular time, just as one example, I was like, well, how do I get out of this? Because if you panic, you're not going to be around, right?
Get worse, yeah.
Yeah, you make it worse because your heart rate accelerates, you start breathing heavy, and when you don't have the oxygen, you burn up the oxygen you've got in your lungs already. And I could not make myself throw up, and I I fought my way out of it by using my head. And as I was dealing with it, I was like, okay, what would Hal Jordan do if he was in this spot? That's literally how the character helped save my life, and on more than one occasion. But not to belabor the story, but if you pound your fist against the toilet bowl, the pain will keep you awake. And that's what I did. I ended up with bloody hands. And my parents never let me. I had a rule. My parents had a rule that I couldn't eat when I got home from school anymore after that. But I've had a number of those kind of cases throughout my life. And whenever I've had those close calls, that's always been my fallback. And when I had my stroke in February, I kind of went through some mental gyrations, and I still do go through some mental um, some downs. I go through some downs, and I pull myself out of it by thinking about Green Lantern lore. And we all have will inside of us, right? We all have the ability to overcome our challenges. Not every challenge can be overcome, but it can inspire you to find that within you if it's there. And that's what it's always meant to me. And why I defend Hal to the bitter end is because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this guy. I wouldn't. I would not. I would have died as a kid. So that is why, and that's why I do the show, and that's why I do the website. Was I got to a point in my life where I'm like, I owe this character so much. I owe this mythology so much. I feel like I need to give back to it in some way. And so that's been what drives me a lot. And I don't see that happening. But I don't mean to ramble on, but
You're not rambling on. You're
that's the
23.
story, and I hope you don't mind it.
No, that's a good story, man. And and I hope that this character can touch somebody else like that. And it
When
probably has.
when DC was, remember when DC was giving away the power rings
Hmm.
back during the Blackest Night thing?
Hmm.
My comic shop would let me buy extra bags of rings, and I would take them to conventions and I would give them to kids.
Good for you, man.
And I would do it as I would tell a kid whenever you feel,
They're actually right here. Look.
yeah, I would say whenever you feel you're in a situation where you're scared or what have you, think about the ring. The ring is powered by will, and you have it inside of you too. And I would use that as an inspirational thing with kids. I wish DC would put the rings back out again because I gave away all the ones I had, but I would buy them and give them away to kids, especially if a parent would talk to me about how a kid liked Green Lantern for very similar reasons. I would go out of my way to talk to that child and give them the ring and use it as a way to inspire kids to overcome their fears.
Now, would you hand out red lantern rings or yellow?
No, I sold those. I,
Fair
I
enough.
did there for a while, and it was probably what's a bad thing to do. But for a while, I bought some of the other colors, and I'd go to conventions and I would sell the rings for $1, just to help fund the cost of buying the green ones I could give away. It was
Fair is
also
fair.
back in the day we had podcast of Oa t-shirts, and I would sell them at conventions, and I didn't charge them for much more than what it cost. It was just to help give me money to buy power rings to give to kids. I don't think I've ever shared that before, but
We do need to get a couple t-shirts though. We should get
it
those.
might be a high time to have another shirt. We did a couple of ones. I did a keep calm and charge your power ring with our logo in the center, and we had one there for a while. We had the whole the whole the whole the whole multicolored universe thing, and we made a play on seafoam lanterns.
Yeah, I
And
remember
so
that.
we had a t-shirt with a Silver Age Green Lantern logo, but it was the Seafoam Lanterns, and it was a Seafoam Lantern t-shirt with the logo in it that one of our listeners designed for us. And I sold both of them for a while. In fact, I think I have 2 boxes of them still because people who said they were going to buy them never followed through and bought them. And I put them online for sale for a while, and and doing the convention thing kind of died out. So once Green Lantern's popularity died out, there was not a big draw. I used to go to these conventions, and I never got to any of the big ones, but I used to have a life-size Ganthet that I made out of PVC pipe and a child's choir robe and a Guardian mask that they made for the movie, and did a Guardian photo op.
Did it work?
Yeah, oh yeah, lots of people took pictures with Ganthet. It was
That's
really popular. It would draw people, and I had a banner I put up behind, and I would run a DVD of all kinds of Green Lantern clips with intercut promos for the show and the website. Back in the day when Green Lantern was really popular, it was a draw. I did quite well for myself in terms of being able to buy those rings. I gave away hundreds of power rings to kids.
That's cool, man. That'd have been fun. That'd have been a good
It
time.
was. I really enjoyed it. Just when you got a kid who I have the power battery that lights up. So I would have the kid do the oath. If they didn't know the oath, I would teach the child the oath and make the power battery light up when they would put the ring on it. And
That's
seeing the kids' faces light up was it was just amazing. But um, anyway, we've got more listener feedback, so let's get to the next one.
The next message is from Michael. He has some comments about the comics industry. Transmitting in 3, 2, 1.
I've been listening to the blog of OA for a while now and love the show. Lately it has been my only source of Green Lantern news. I have quit buying comics from the big two due to the comics being filled with agenda-driven stories. Stories that I cannot let my children read and enjoy like I did when I was young. Luckily the world is changing. The Overton window is swinging hard to the right, so we shall see what the future holds. I have consigned myself to buying and reading old stories from the past and also reading books published from the Rippaverse. Maybe one day DC and Marvel will remember how to tell good stories, stories that help them build their companies to what they are today. Sadly, due to their agenda push from everything to books and movies, they are getting hurt in their wallets. Some have said that they are changing the way they tell stories so that they can bring in a bigger audience. I believe that they have to regain the trust of the people first. The people that used to read their books in the past and watch their movies. It's a shame that these people have been disappointed so many times that it may take a long time to rebuild that trust. I'm not sure that the big companies can afford to do that though, especially with the news coming out about Fantastic Four and the new Superman movie already projected to disappoint long-time fans. Keep up the good work. May your ring shine bright in the dark during these dark times.
Hey, Michael, thanks for reaching out. The world is always changing and the pendulum is always swinging in one direction or the other. And there are times when we find our own philosophies at odds with what's popular. And I totally get it, and there was a time when I stopped buying some books too because I didn't believe in the way things were going. And, I don't know. People will argue and say that books have always been filled with an agenda, just that we don't notice it when the agenda agrees with ours. But at either rate, I hope that at some point you get back to it. I think if you were to read the Jeremy Adams run, you would find that it's not really filled with any of that kind of stuff, that kind of messaging and such. So if you get a chance, check it out. Check out our trade or something and give it a look and see what you think.
It's
But thank you.
also it's also worth noting too, like when it comes to particular elements like that, I try to I try not to look for it. I know that there's messaging done in a lot of media and a lot of content these days, and I know it spews over into comic books. I'm not an idiot, but I also try to see past it because I'm there for the enjoyment of the comic books and
Yeah.
I want to relegate it to the
Some
characterization.
sometimes it's hard though. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's
It,
very in your face.
it can be, and you're right, but
And I'm sure, Michael sounds a lot like me in some regards in that I'm reading comics for the escapism, so keep the real world stuff out of here. I
sure,
I get it when it shows up, I love classic Star Trek and you can't tell me there wasn't some kind of agenda in that show. There certainly was.
all the time, yeah,
I guess the difference is that now they try to tell you what's the right way to think and what is the wrong way to think versus letting you decide for yourself. But that's a soapbox I don't want to get on right now, but I hope that you stick around and check out some books. And we have more listener feedback, but we're gonna cut it short because Phil has some very scary weather where he's at right now. He's got a severe thunderstorm warning going on. Just had a tornado in St. Louis not too long ago, a couple days ago, which we were stranded on a bridge at the time, which is a harrowing story. So we're gonna cut it short. We're not gonna do a closing. We're just gonna wrap it up now. Next episode, we are doing GL June. We are talking about Green Lantern Corps Recharge, which was a 6-issue miniseries, or no, maybe it was five. It was 5 issues back in the day. And it was the kickoff to Green Lantern Corps after the successful relaunch of Green Lantern under Jeff Johns. Can't wait to talk about it. The first issue. We'll have that out very beginning of June. Phil and I will get together probably this next week to record. Have it out there early because if you're not familiar with GL June, it's all the Green Lantern content providers together in a giant tag team where we take a story like this, a 5-issue story, and each show takes a piece of the pie and talks about it. So we're starting off this relay race, and then we're going to hand the baton off, and we'll go from there. I'll put a graphic up showing who's doing what for GL June in this story. And it's a neat way for us to promote each other. We have a great Green Lantern creator community. We often prop each other up and stuff. So I'm excited for that. Phil, do you have any closing words before you take shelter?
no, so we could probably start getting to work on that pretty soon then, because we'll be doing the
Yeah.
first issue for the month of June. So
Yeah, we need. I want to have it out early June, like the first couple of days of June. I'd like to have it out there for people. That way, we're not slowing up
right
anybody
on.
else from what they want to do. So,
Okay.
you and I'll get together. Maybe next week is Memorial Day. Maybe we'll record during the week sometime next week.
Yeah, that'd be good. We'll be out of town this coming weekend, so
Okay. So yeah, let's
okay.
plan sometimes next week, and we'll get that done. That'll give me some time to get this episode turned around, and then we'll jump in the GL June. I can't wait to talk about it. It was an awesome miniseries. For those
Mm.
who've never read it, boy, follow along with us and pick it up and read it along with us as we do it because it is an awesome story.
It is real good stuff.
All right. So, my friends, until next time, keep that power ring charged, treat each other well, take care of yourselves, please, by all means, and make every day your brightest day. Take care. Thanks so much for watching this Green Lantern video from the blog of Oa. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find even more great Green Lantern videos, reviews, podcasts, and more at our main website, www.blogofoa.com. So until next time, keep your power ring charged and make every day your brightest day.